Welcome back, WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. And this is going to be a great segment because we talk about merging the sports of WNST with the future of Baltimore Positive and the new website and all that we've dreamed up with Don Moeller. Before we get to the segment, though, I got to tell you about all my I had the Taharka guys on this week. So every week we're going to be having ice cream makers on. It's kind of like having the Willy Wonka factory on. And we had the old school labels and the new school labels, and everybody's talking about new flavors. Don Moeller, I got the inside skinny. This is the everlasting gobstopper of Taharka. They're making a pumpkin latte.
Oh, baby.
Oh, baby. Be the new, and we're talking about eggnog as well. Taharka, social change, great ice cream. Our friends at State Fair and our friends at El Guapo, I am this close to a margarita, and maybe just, I'm just going to tell them to bring me something I can't pronounce that's Hispanic, and I'll just eat it. That's what I'm going to do. At El Guapo, I'm going to learn how to pronounce everything on the menu, then I'm going to eat everything on the menu, and I'm going to drink it with tequila because that's what I'm going to do at El Guapo. We're going to be over at Frederick Road doing that. Also, Fadley's. My wife made this corn chowder, and I'm like, that needs some crab cakes from Fadley's and some of the little tomatoes that pop in my mouth. So I'm going over to Fadley's this week. You can go to Fadley's. You can visit them at Lexington Market. They're coming to Catonsville, and they will ship the world famous, and they're world famous for a reason, crab cakes to you at Fadley's. Also, Moeller and Gary Realty. I'm going to be putting a cute little Moeller and Gary bow tie on Don Moeller on the front of the new Baltimore Positive. Don't tell him. Don, you booked this segment, and I know we got a lot of moving parts here with John Maroon and Cal Ripken and friends and sports, and you running Baltimore County and all that stuff. But this is going to be a fun one because the last time I hugged somebody, I think this guy was one of the last people I hugged, Don.
Well, we said from the beginning, Nestor, that we wanted to have people on Baltimore Positive who believe in the city, who believe its future is bright, and believe that if you get in and really try to make a difference, that change is going to come about. We want to help tell those stories, and that's why we're proud to welcome Matt Hanna, the founder and CEO of Next One Up. Matt, I keep drifting in. I call it Next Man Up. I must have something to do with the Ravens or something, but I think
it's Billick's book was Next Man Up.
Next Man Up.
That's what it was.
I'm back in Brian Billick's era. But Matt, welcome to Baltimore Positive, and we really can't wait to hear about your organization.
Thanks, Don. Thanks, Nestor. Thanks a lot for having me. And great to be here. Well, we're in good company with that name. And Next One Up has been absolutely initially a passion project as a teacher in Baltimore City, and now a focus on as my full-time career with an amazing staff of how can we continue to change outcomes for youth and think about it in a way that we're seeing around corners, thinking about generational change, thinking 10, 20 years down the road of what really needs our attention right now, not just a kid going to college or a guy playing football or, all those nice stories that we do here. We keep pushing this thing down the road and thinking, how can we create these healthy and wealthy young men making a huge impact in Baltimore? This program will be successful when some young man takes this thing right over. We're building these guys, not just, teach them to fish or hand them a fish. We're doing a lot of teaching.
I want to talk about Next One Up, and we'll get to that in a minute. But, I look down through the resume out on LinkedIn, and I see Cristo Ray, and I can't begin to tell you how many people have come to me to talk about Cristo Ray and talk about what's happening in our city here and good things and leadership and people like Don Moeller taking a wayward soul like me in 1982 and guidancing me up into where we are. But it really does take leadership, and you've rolled your sleeves up into this above and beyond the lacrosse stick, right?
Yes, and I as a teacher in the classroom, especially at Cristo Ray, being such an impactful time period in my life of kids showing up to school, working hard academically, and for me was then what happens when school ends? Where do you go then?
Well, give me a little piece of you now. Hold on, tell me about you, because you wind up in you don't just wind up in a classroom. Moeller plays that with me. He just wound up in a classroom in '82 as my guidance counselor. I had to figure out what happened in Western Maryland before that. But for you, being a teacher and wanting to dedicate your life to that, Don and I spend a lot of time, and his daughter's we spend a lot of time talking about how you become captured as a teacher.
Yeah, I can trace it all the way back to, my mom teaching first grade in Middle River in the 1970s, and my father coaching football at the Naval Academy and lacrosse and, name it. I'm a coach's son, a teacher's son. For me, the jump off after college, I played lacrosse at Johns Hopkins, had an amazing experience, was, put in a leadership position there as a captain, and went through my struggles academically and in terms of my health as an athlete, all those pitfalls that young people hit. And then, I fall into education, which I knew that's the direction that I was going. My first teaching gig was at St. Paul's School. I had a really nice experience there. And my wife at the time got a job transfer out to Denver. So I became a educator out in the Denver area for 3 years. And then she gets transferred back. This is in the late 2008 or so. Said, hey, we're going back to Baltimore. I didn't think twice. I said, I'm going to Baltimore City. I'm going to find something in the city. I've gotten into education. I love working with youth and coaching, but I realized when the school bell rings, there's so much more you can do. Put me in a school where I can roll my sleeves up. Just the same as anybody, you want to be a firefighter, like drop me into the mix. And the idea of like, I don't want to stand around. I don't want to be a bystander in what I see. I want a career that constantly needs my energy and my attention, because that was something I wanted to really apply to youth in Baltimore. And that's what's really sparked this trajectory for me, is I found my purpose in working with youth.
Matt Hanna is the founder and CEO of Next One Up. Of course, Don Moeller joining us here at Baltimore Positive. Just because we're merging sports in Baltimore Positive doesn't mean all of our guests are going to have this connection. But, Don, I know you're heartened by this, because part of your whole experience of teaching your son and my dad and teaching me about sports would be that we would grab a lacrosse stick or a baseball bat or a glove or a basketball or whatever, and we would be a team. And I wrote a blog this week about being in Houston where, the Ravens had guys sitting on the bench, kneeling in front of the bench, standing up. But when the whistle blew, it was a team, and everybody worked together. And that is part of the transition that I think you always tried to impress upon being a coach, and your brother, of course, being a legendary coach here, that it would rub off and that would make better teachers, right?
Well, I do believe, and it is gratifying to hear Matt talk about the whole concept of team and being a part of something that's bigger than yourself. I do believe that in terms of those lessons that come out of sports. And Nestor, as you know, I probably, saw Matt play along the way. I have a nephew that played for a championship at UVA. I had a niece that played for a championship at North Carolina. I have a son that was the captain of the lacrosse team at St. Mary's College. So sports has been an important part of what we do. But Matt, you've taken it beyond that. And what I want you to help do for our listeners, and we did this with one of our all-time favorite guests, Sarah Heminger from Thread, and the absolute amazing work that they're doing at Thread to transform lives. And you're part of another network that's transforming lives. Describe the kids that you work with for people right now in their cars driving around the Beltway. Put a face on those kids, because I've got to tell you, if you live in Catonsville or Towson or Hereford or Moncton or Havre de Grace, you've got a certain image, unfortunately, I think, of what a Baltimore City youngster is all about. And I'm not sure that image is accurate. And I'd like you to tell our folks about the kids you work with.
I was blessed to work in education and serving inner city youth in Baltimore, Don. And for me, there's absolutely no shortage of young men in this specific case with Next One Up that you could absolutely look at, like we look at in sports, as underdogs with challenges that have an enormous fire in their belly. And when we find these guys in middle school cafeterias, or they're recommended by a principal or a coach or a parent, we sit down with that kid and say, hey, if you latch on to this program, your life will change, but it's going to take commitment. And the idea with that, Don, is those young men are out there. These are the kids that are attending middle schools and elementary schools and in neighborhoods that are absolutely trying to swallow them up. We talk about home, street, and school. Guys that have challenges within their home, guys that live in group homes or might have, single parents raising them and struggling. But the idea of when you walk out your door, what is the street like? What is that life like getting to the bus stop? You want to go get something fresh to eat. How far far do you have to go? And then you mix in that school piece. Where do you attend school? All the way down, Don, to what does your school lunch look like? What are we feeding these guys? How are we stimulating them when we get to school? Are coaches leading, not just coaching? So we look at this huge picture and see there's a vast majority of young people in Baltimore City that are just lost in the sense that what is the path that I should follow? What is right? And for us is from a leadership standpoint, the academic abilities that our young men really need to see and take on so they get into a world of equity. I think that's what we see and what folks will see around Baltimore City is that perception that there's a lot of young men that are going nowhere. I have a very different perspective in that we're able to find those young guys that are going somewhere. They just don't have the map yet. And I again, in and out of middle schools, 120 guys currently in the program. And over the years, I've taught hundreds of students in Baltimore City. The perception of the public versus what I saw in the classroom was very different. And I also will say, even based on what I look like as their educator, when you take respect and love and you put that into a relationship, just like any great coach, a lot of this goes out the window.
Matt, I'm pulling up the website here and for everyone at nextoneup.org so people can see what you do, all the programs. And I know you can look down and talk about all of this, but
stop it down. Hey, Nestor,
go ahead, sure.
Stop right there on key outcomes. Come back down a little bit again.
All right, there we go.
For those of you out there listening and not watching us right now on YouTube or on Facebook, Matt, these outcomes, I'm so glad Nestor pulled these up so folks can see them. They're actually mind-boggling. You said there are 120 kids, okay? We start with that. They're all males, Matt?
That's correct.
Okay, you're working with males. 100% have been accepted into 2 or 4 year colleges. 95% go on to college or to join the military.
It says matriculate. That's a Hank Stram word. We're going to use that word.
Matriculate. There you go.
There you go.
They get involved in out-of-school activities and volunteer activities. They spend time on a college campus. This is pretty remarkable stuff. So Nestor drills right down and says, here's the great stuff that's happening. What are you doing, Matt? Because again, I'll go back. This is where we're so heartened. And if you're out in the suburbs and you think, Baltimore City, forget about it, let it fall into the harbor. This is why we can't do that. Because there are people making a difference. There are Sarah Hemmingers. There are Matt Hannas. Matt, tell us about your program. So you've got these kids. Now help Nestor and me understand what the program looks like and feels like for these kids.
Sure. As we take a look, guys, and we recruit, beginning in 6th grade, and by recruit, we just, work through our contacts at various schools, neighborhoods, zip codes that matter to us that we feel need the attention of what we can provide. We'll sit with a parents, family, whoever will join to sit down with that young person and say, you are about to go on a very long ride, and this ride is going to take commitment. The first step is when you join 7th grade, will you commit every single Sunday during the school year from 9 to 3 p.m. to our program? So we're telling a kid.
That means during Ravens games too? I'm sure you get that question, right?
We stream them. Don't worry. We stream them. We actually have a room where the guys can watch the games if they're doing what they need to do.
Don't take my Ravens away now. Come on.
No. And with our guys too, it's, we work around that quite a bit. We're always happy when there's Sunday night games because we get it all in. But we have a staff of 8 plus, multiple mentors and all the.
Are all these kids into sports to begin with? Were all these kids,
That's the carrot we dangle, Nestor. And with that, when you come in, there's no test. We've got guys that think they're going to the NBA and can't dribble, and we got guys that might play in the NFL and don't know it yet.
But sports is the center. They have to love sports and want to be involved in something athletic, right?
Yeah, learning leadership through participation. Perfect. And so with that is, a kid might come in who just quit his basketball team. We literally will have a meeting with that kid and say, you better pick up a trumpet or some drums or something because you better find an extracurricular. And it's in our contract that students are involved in at least 2 extracurriculars. But sports is really the carrot. And a lot of it is, guys that think that pro sports is going to fix everything. It's, hey, let's talk about plan B and C.
What is plan B? So you said 2 things. What are the other things these kids are interested in beyond sports?
Sure. For ours, it's developing those interests. So you can imagine the average teenager, right? It's everything from their social media to things that might be unobtainable in that sense. So what we are trying to do is sharpen those skills, meaning that, telling an 18-year-old what career could be out there for them. It's not very interesting to them. So the idea is like, can we get to work sites and show them how this works? Can we bring in some of our alumni to teach them what careers more specifically might fit them? Because we're getting a lot of sort of general graduates, guys that get a high school degree and then spend 4 or 5 years kicking around figuring out what it's going to be. So a lot of it is the academic planning and programming that we provide to our guys will mirror the workforce. The idea of doing STEM, robotics, coding, you name it, what we can drop in is going to be something that's really applicable to what jobs are available now. And even now, as we see during COVID, we're really trying to see around corners to figure out what the future is.
Well, Moeller was my guidance counselor in 1982. And the one thing about 38 years later is we got to know each other, right? And I think getting to know, having a level of trust, that would be the biggest hurdle in the city, right? For anyone, for anyone that's a 13, 14, or 15-year-old, all three of us were that age at one point, yep, to know who to trust, especially when you don't have a guidance counselor like Don Moeller or father like I had who Don yep knew. You don't have that guiding light. Where is that resource in your life? Yep. And I know you're stepping up to be that. Matt Hanna is here. He's the founder and CEO of Next One Up, based here in Baltimore. Tell people how they can get involved with this and what your ask of our community would be.
Sure. For us, as we start to develop more and more graduates into their 20s, we're constantly on the warpath to really figure out places of employment. We've got great guys, working at Whiting Turner and, Pompeii and Olive Oil and all these, Morgan Stanley, you name it. We're growing our network, so opportunities exist for a lot of young men that might not have an established network upon graduation. So in that piece, do you have a career or a business out there that you think you'd want to contact us, because our career counselor is excellent in preparing our guys for those next steps. And, obviously, as the organization starts to grow, we're covering tuition money for high schools. We're pushing our guys into, internships that involve travel in other cities. So the idea of financial investment in Next One Up can be put forth in a lot of different ways. And we don't have a heck of a lot of overhead. Our money goes to these guys and to our staff that surely dedicate their days focused on them. There's not a heck of a lot of back office stuff going on in Next One Up. This is relationships, and you cannot out-program them. We could raise money to develop a stronger, structure of program and whatever you'd like to call it online and what people could see and play with. But for us, is these relationships are key, and to drive these relationships. And as Nestor, you just said too, we are a relationship-based program that's having an absolute impact on these guys because they trust us, and we get what we need out of them because they get the same from us.
What, Matt, where does the funding give us a sense of the organization? Like, how big is the how many employees in the you're the founder and CEO? How many employees at Next One Up?
There's 7 of us. There's 5 of us full-time, Don, and a really healthy mix of social worker, college counselor, career counselor, program directors. Everybody touches a certain area that absolutely works directly with the kids. So, and then from a funding standpoint, we operate, just under $1 million a year in revenue to make this thing go. And some just great supporters, individuals, as well as, groups, obviously, like the Ravens, even just recently have been fantastic to us, and a great partner, Weinberg Foundation, Not Foundation, a really great mix of folks around town that have been good to us and have watched us grow, and we're gaining more support as we go, because I think, as folks see the model, this is there's no quitting us, and we're proving it in our outcomes with older guys.
How often, Matt, how often do you all or a member of your staff interact with these young men? Now, you mentioned someone interacts with them every Sunday, but from Sunday to Sunday, is there an interaction in that time period as well?
Yes, I call my phone the switchboard, and it just goes. And so during the week, when you look at this high touch piece of Sunday, that's a very small percentage of the work that we truly do. So picture a student that's struggling in a school. Now, obviously with COVID, we're talking about online intervention in some ways, but students that are struggling, skipping a class, not showing up, we show up at their home. We have a written agreement with families that we can visit their student at school. We can even pull them out of class when we'd like to. So it's a very hands-on approach approach that if something's going on, we're going to show up. So, all the way to the point of when guys go to college, we're dropping them off. We're sending them the care packages they need, putting money into their meal account in college so they can see it every step of the way. We're there. And I think what's most unique about us is not what people see on paper, but it's what people don't know that we do. You're not making rent this month. Might be something that we can do about it. You think you're going to leave school because you lost that student loan? I think we can do something about that. So for us, it's can we be a little bit of everything to that young man on his path, not just a Sunday mentor. That's the low-hanging fruit. For us is us in our cars, busting our butts during the week. And now we found ourselves in Zoom calls with groups, and it's still working. Our summer program worked. We had great attendance. It's not perfect, but we can see that the relationships are far outperforming the programming.
Matt, when David Brooks of the New York Times wrote about Thread, one of the sentences that he wrote in that article that captured Nestor and mine's attention was that he said, I'll paraphrase, something to the effect of what he found so powerful was that when you looked at the program, you couldn't tell who was the helper, who was the receiver. In other words, who was benefiting most. That's a paraphrase. Is that true in your organization as well? In that, in terms of your staff is getting as much out of the program as the young men you're helping?
Yes, and although we're not volunteer based in a lot of support we provide our guys, I also say for myself and a lot of us, we've been practitioners in this in a number of angles for a long time. So we're absolutely getting a lot out of it, but I see we celebrate so much more the success of our guys. There certainly is a time in my life, and it's a long time ago, Joe Ehrman said to me, do you ever celebrate? I said, I do not. I will celebrate at some point. And Joe said, you need to take time to celebrate. And I have not yet. I'm very proud of where this program is, but I'm not even close to satisfied with where we're sitting right now. We got a lot of work to do. And I do really enjoy seeing the growth of our guys. I could turn on a football game on Saturday and watch the next one up kid from East Baltimore compete for Notre Dame. That makes me happy, but I'll be way more happy when he's 30 and he owns his own business.
Matt Hanna is here. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Nestor. No. Go ahead. Reset, Nestor, because I have a question about the stock market component. But go ahead.
Matt
Reset
Hanna is here. He's the founder and CEO of Next One Up. You can find out everything about them, and I pulled it up if you've watched the video at nextmanup.org. Go ahead, Don.
Matt, I was curious when I was doing some background on the program. There's this what I call stock market component, and I thought, it says everybody gets $5,000 and they invested in. I thought, well, that's a new wrinkle that I haven't heard of before. So educate us about what I call the stock market component of Next One Up.
For us is, I thought to myself, for years, we're doing financial literacy with some great partners and board members and folks in the community that can come in and really talk money. Which is great. We talk about generational wealth. How can we put a young man into the playing field? And for us is not every graduate necessarily, attached. The idea is that we've created a fund. That fund will grow. And as we start to develop, we just had a call about it this morning. We're still curating that idea to make sure that it's going to, one, absolutely fit the mission in a way that's going to create long-term generational wealth for our guys. But as we announced to our seniors this year, every year our graduates, money will be dropped into this bucket. You can't touch it till you're 30. We're talking about you withdrawing that money after interest to make a down payment on a home, a business, a 529 for your child. I think so often we see, a kid is 18 and we celebrate that, hey, here's $500 for a scholarship to do whatever you want with. We told them, here's some money, and we pull it back and say, you'll see it in 12 years. Well, 12 years, that means we're friends for the next 12 years, and you're going to come to all of our retreats, all of our financial literacy operations, and when you're done, you will be a smart young investor in Baltimore City at 30 years old.
Matt Hanna is here, and I think that about sums it up. But I thought we were going to talk a little lacrosse, man. Like I began this thing by you acknowledged before we began that we were actually together. Like the last night you could touch people. And I remember shaking a few hands that night and thinking it probably wasn't a good idea. And you and I were at the same table, and it was a Sports Boosters event. It really is incredible over the last 7 months that this is the way we've lived our lives. And the last person I touched was probably you at a buffet in Pikesville one night.
And that's, it was always, we were always doing that at a buffet in Pikesville. And now all of a sudden, we're cut off from that. It has been a crazy stretch to look at everything from sports and this huge learning gap that students are facing. Yeah, we saw each other in March. I had no idea what was coming. Remember, we were talking about whether or not there was going to be a Final Four or a game next weekend.
No. What happened that night is I'm at the table and they thought I was a lacrosse expert. I told this story that night.
Well, that shows how out of touch they were.
Well, be nice because he might
Leonard.
be listening. But yeah,
I love him.
be nice. He reached to me and I said, well, I know Quint, and I reached to Quint and Quint said, sure. And I hadn't seen Quint in a while, and I love Quint. And next thing I know, Quint and I are having a beverage, and Matt's there, and other people were there, and we're literally sitting there. And Quint looked down on his phone. He's like, "Oh my God, they just canceled the lacrosse season, right? Like the Ivy League went.
Right.
It was the night of Rudy Gobert. It was at 6:30 or 7 o'clock that night. By the time I got home at 11 o'clock, all hell had broken loose. The next morning, March Madness was, everything began that night. But I was at a lacrosse-based event. So, Don, people don't think I get out in Baltimore to lacrosse-based events, but some people think I know lacrosse. They're delusional.
Matt, what were you? I'm guessing, were you a midfielder?
I was wherever I got yelled at to go, but I did, midfield attack, and the professional league, I played a little bit of both as well. And so I was out there and having Quint too, the local expert, he knows what's going on. So he makes everybody look good. Nestor on the lacrosse front.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. Hey, Matt, appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on. My thanks to the Ripken and Maroon gang and Don Moeller as well. Last shout for you to get a little elevator speech so people can get in touch with you, find you right away if they need you.
Yeah, absolutely. Nextoneup.org. And I'm, Matt at nextoneup.org on social media. It's all over, but our website is a great landing spot for people to learn more about the big work that we're doing.
All right. And he'll be glad to talk lacrosse with you as well in his spare time. On behalf of Don Moeller, former Baltimore County executive, and myself, we are merging WNST.net with the Baltimore Positive brand, bringing it all into one portal with all of the work we've ever done, even my old rock and roll stuff and books and all that stuff, all in one place. All are brought to you by our friends at Taharka, and we also have some Taharka conversations about that pumpkin latte that's coming around the corner. My wife's licking her lips right now, trying to go buy new cones for this, as well as our friends at Moeller and Gary Realty. Jeff's going to come on. We'll probably talk a little lacrosse, and I'm sure a little Ravens football with him next week as well. And Fadley's shipping those crab cakes. I'm picking up those crab cakes. We're going to get some mac and cheese as well, maybe a little crab soup to go with that as well. And our friends at State Fair and El Guapo over in Catonsville. Evan is getting that place open. He's firing up some delicious ethnic food of my taste of the Central American, South American, and the Caribbean flavors. I'm looking forward to getting over to El Guapo. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking. Little lacrosse, little good stuff, and some Baltimore positive.